The moment I stepped through the front door of my childhood home in suburban Chicago, my world shattered in an instant. There she was, Bethany, sitting on the couch with that same warm smile that had once made my heart race back in college. My parents beamed as they introduced her to my brother Ryan as the woman they'd chosen to be his wife, completely unaware that she was the one person who knew all my secrets. The one woman I had loved and lost 5 years ago. I froze in the entryway, grocery bags slipping from my fingers, the thud echoing like a gunshot in the sudden silence. Mom rushed over, pulling me into a hug that smelled of her usual lavender perfume and Sunday pot roast. "Parker, honey, you're late. Come meet Bethany. She's exactly what Ryan needs, stable, kind, from a good family. We've been praying for someone like her." Dad clapped Ryan on the back, grinning like he'd just closed the biggest deal of his life. Ryan, my older brother by 2 years, looked proud, his arm loosely around Bethany's shoulders as if she already belonged there. Bethany's eyes met mine for the briefest second, and in that glance I saw everything: recognition, pain, and a silent plea I couldn't decode. 5 years. That's how long I'd spent rebuilding myself in San Francisco, throwing myself into my graphic design job, dating casually but never letting anyone close enough to matter. I told myself the chapter with Bethany was closed, buried under layers of fear and family expectations. My parents were the kind who still sent me articles about traditional values and asked when I'd bring home a nice young man. Coming out had never been an option. It would break them. So I smiled through holidays, nodded at their matchmaking attempts, and kept my truth locked away. But now Bethany, my Bethany, was sitting in the living room I grew up in, wearing a modest blue dress that hugged her frame the way my hands once had, playing the role of perfect daughter-in-law to be. I forced my legs to move, dropping the bags on the kitchen counter before joining them. "Nice to meet you, Bethany," I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. She stood, extending her hand like we were strangers. Her touch was brief, professional, but the warmth of her palm sent a jolt straight through me. "Likewise, Parker. Your family has told me so much about you." The lie rolled off her tongue so smoothly it almost convinced me. Almost. Dinner was a minefield. Mom kept refilling plates while Dad grilled Bethany about her job as a high school counselor. Such a noble profession, guiding young minds. And Ryan talked about his promotion at the bank. I pushed green beans around my plate, every laugh from Bethany twisting the knife deeper. How had this happened? Last I knew, she was finishing her master's in Boston, determined to live openly after I'd chosen silence. Had she given up too? Or was this some twisted coincidence my family had engineered without knowing the history? Later, while Mom and Dad cleared the table, Ryan pulled Bethany aside to show her the backyard garden he'd been bragging about. I slipped into the hallway, heart hammering, pretending to check my phone. Footsteps behind me. I turned and there she was, alone for the first time. "Parker," she whispered, her voice cracking the professional mask. "I didn't know. They contacted me through a church singles group 2 months ago. Ryan's picture, I thought maybe it was a sign. I never expected you to walk through that door." The words hit like ice water. 2 months. Long enough for my family to fall in love with the idea of her. To start planning a future that didn't include me. I wanted to scream, to demand how she could do this, but the words stuck. Instead, I stepped closer. The scent of her vanilla shampoo pulling me back to late-night study sessions and stolen kisses in her dorm. "You're really going through with it? Marrying my brother?" Her eyes filled with tears. She blinked away quickly. "What choice do I have? You made yours 5 years ago. I'm tired of fighting alone." The accusation hung between us, heavy as the family Bible on the coffee table. Before I could answer, Ryan's voice called from the kitchen, and she was gone, leaving me standing there with the weight of every unsaid word pressing on my chest. That night in my old bedroom, surrounded by faded posters of bands I no longer listened to, I stared at the ceiling and felt the first cracks in the walls I'd built. My family had chosen Bethany to complete Ryan's life, but she was already the missing piece in mine. The price of silence was about to get higher than I ever imagined. Morning light filtered through the lace curtains Mom still refused to replace, and I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of laughter downstairs. For a split second, it felt like any other visit home, until the memory of Bethany's face slammed back into me. I pulled on jeans and a sweater, steeling myself for another day of pretending. Down in the kitchen, The scene was picture perfect. Dad reading the newspaper, Mom flipping pancakes, Ryan and Bethany side by side at the table, her hand resting lightly on his arm. She looked up as I entered, her smile polite but her eyes guarded. "Morning, sis," Ryan said through a mouthful of bacon. "Bethany was just telling us about her volunteer work at the youth center. You two should talk. You're both into helping people, right?" The innocent suggestion made my stomach turn. Helping people. That's what Bethany had called our relationship once. Helping each other be brave. Now it was a weapon pointed at the heart of everything I'd hidden. I poured coffee and sat across from them, forcing conversation about my latest project at the design firm. Bethany nodded at all the right moments, asking questions that sounded genuine. But under the table, her foot brushed mine once, accidental or not. It sent electricity up my leg. I jerked away, knocking my mug and spilling coffee across the placemat. Mom fussed, wiping it up while shooting me a look that said, "Not in front of company." The small humiliation burned. This was my life now, navigating landmines in my own home. After breakfast, Ryan announced he was taking Bethany into the city for a day trip, to show her the real Chicago. Mom insisted I join them. "It'll be good for you to get out, Parker. You work too hard in that big city of yours." I couldn't refuse without raising suspicion, so I climbed into the back seat of Ryan's SUV, Bethany up front beside him. The drive was torture. Ryan chattered about wedding venues and honeymoon ideas while Bethany laughed softly, occasionally glancing at me in the rearview mirror. Each shared look was a conversation we couldn't have. At Millennium Park, under the silver curve of the bean, Ryan wandered off to buy ice cream, leaving us alone on a bench. The wind off the lake whipped Bethany's hair across her face. "I didn't plan this," she said quietly, staring at the skyline. "Your mom reached out after seeing my profile. She said Ryan needed someone grounded, someone who believes in family the way they do. I thought maybe I could learn to love him. Maybe it would be easier than waiting for you to change your mind." Her words cut deep because they echoed the fight that ended us. Back in college, I'd begged her to keep us secret just until graduation. She'd wanted to hold my hand in public, to tell her friends, to build a life without shame. I'd chosen fear. Now that choice sat 3 feet away, pretending to love my brother. "And what about us?" I asked, voice low. "Does any of it still mean something?" Bethany turned, her green eyes searching mine. "It means everything. But your family, they're so proud of the life they've built. Coming out would destroy them, Parker. You know that. Ryan deserves a real chance to. I can't be the one to tear all of it apart." The moral line she drew was clear, yet her hand trembled when she reached for mine, and then pulled back at the sound of Ryan's approaching footsteps. The rest of the day blurred. Navy Pier, laughter that felt hollow, photos I forced myself to smile through. By evening, back home, exhaustion mixed with rage. I cornered Bethany in the hallway while Ryan helped Mom with dishes. "You can't marry him," I hissed. "Not when you still look at me like that." Her face hardened. "Watch me. Because if I don't, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering what if. Just like you are right now." She walked away, leaving me alone with the realization that the woman my family adored was the same one capable of breaking me all over again. That night I lay awake replaying every moment. The internal war raging louder than the clock ticking on the wall. Staying silent meant watching her build a life with Ryan. Speaking up meant risking everything. My family's love, my brother's happiness, the fragile peace I'd clung to. The price of either choice felt unbearable, but the clock was ticking, and I was running out of time to decide which heart to shatter. Sunday morning service at the family church felt like walking into a courtroom where I was both defendant and witness. The pews smelled of polished wood and old hymnals, the same place where I'd first learned that loving another woman was something to confess in private prayers I never truly meant. Mom squeezed my hand during the opening prayer, whispering, "Isn't Bethany wonderful? She even sings in the choir back home." Across the aisle, Bethany stood beside Ryan, her voice clear and steady on the chorus of Amazing Grace. I couldn't sing. The words stuck in my throat like accusations. After the sermon on forgiveness and family bonds, the pastor invited everyone for coffee in the fellowship hall. Ryan introduced Bethany to half the congregation, proud as any man could be. I hung back near the donut table, nursing a styrofoam cup of weak coffee, until Bethany excused herself and headed my way. "We need to talk," she murmured, guiding me toward the quiet hallway near the restrooms. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as she closed the door behind us. "I told Ryan I needed air," she said quickly. "He thinks I'm overwhelmed by how welcoming everyone is." Her laugh was bitter. If only they knew. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed, the professional counselor mask slipping to reveal the woman I remembered. Vulnerable, fierce, exhausted. "Your parents called me every week for a month before I agreed to meet Ryan. They painted this picture of the perfect son, who just needed the right woman to settle down. I was lonely, Parker. Boston didn't work out. I thought maybe stability here, with a man who actually wants the white picket life, maybe it would quiet the part of me that still misses you." The confession hung between us, raw and dangerous. I stepped closer, the scent of her perfume mixing with the faint trace of church incense. "Then why pretend? We could figure this out. Tell them the truth together." Even as I said it, the words tasted like betrayal. Ryan's face flashed in my mind, his easy grin, the way he'd defended me when kids teased me in high school, never knowing the real reason I never dated boys. Bethany shook her head, tears glistening. "You don't get it. I've spent years watching families fall apart over secrets like ours. Your parents would never accept it. They'd blame me for confusing you. Ryan would lose the woman they think will give him the grandchildren they pray for every Sunday. And you'd lose the only family you've ever known. Is that what you want? To trade their love for a relationship we already failed at once?" Her logic was airtight, laced with the same moral weight that had haunted me since college. I reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "Don't. Not here." The rejection stung worse than any argument we'd ever had. Before I could respond, the door opened and Mom poked her head in. "There you girls are. Pastor wants to meet Bethany properly." The moment evaporated, leaving me standing alone in the hallway with the echo of her words. Back at the house that afternoon, tension simmered beneath every conversation. Dad pulled me aside in the garage while Ryan and Bethany helped Mom plant flowers. "Your brother's never been happier," he said, wiping grease from his hands after tinkering with the lawnmower. "Bethany's a godsend. I know you worry about us getting older, Parker, but seeing them together it gives me peace. Promise me you'll support them." The plea in his eyes pinned me in place. How could I promise anything when every second with Bethany reminded me of the life I'd walked away from? That evening, after everyone went to bed, I slipped into the backyard and called my best friend from San Francisco. "I don't know what to do," I whispered into the phone, pacing the dew-covered grass. She listened, then asked the question I'd been avoiding. "Do you still love her?" The answer was yes. Painfully, undeniably yes. But love wasn't enough when the cost included destroying the people who raised me. Monday morning arrived with a text from Bethany. "We need to finish our conversation. Meet me at the coffee shop on Main after lunch. Alone." My hands shook as I replied. The confrontation was coming, whether I was ready or not. And this time, there would be no hallway door to hide behind. The coffee shop on Main Street hadn't changed since high school. Same cracked vinyl booths, same barista who remembered everyone's order. I arrived early, heart pounding, and claimed the corner table farthest from the window. Bethany walked in 15 minutes later, hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing jeans and a simple sweater that made her look like the college girl I'd fallen for. She slid into the seat across from me without a word, ordering a black coffee like old times. "I can't keep pretending," she said the moment the waitress left. "Every time Ryan kisses my cheek, I see your face. Every time your mom calls me, the daughter we always prayed for, I feel like I'm stealing something that belongs to you." Her voice cracked, and she stared into her cup as if the answers were written in the steam. "But walking away now would destroy them. Your dad told me yesterday how much the family name means to him. Stability, tradition, faith. Coming out as us would be like setting fire to everything they built." I gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white. "So what? We both just suffer in silence. You marry Ryan, I go back to San Francisco and pretend none of this happened? That's not a solution, Bethany. That's torture." The words poured out, years of regret fueling them. I told her about the nights I'd cried in my apartment, about the women I'd dated who never measured up because none of them were her. She listened, tears tracking silently down her cheeks, but when I reached for her hand across the table, she shook her head. "Remember what happened the last time we tried to fight for this?" she whispered. "You chose your family's approval over us. I can't risk being the reason Ryan loses everything. He's a good man, Parker. He deserves someone who can love him fully." The betrayal in her tone cut deeper than any shout. She was choosing my brother, or at least the life he represented, over the love we'd shared. Or was she choosing to protect me from the fallout? We argued in hushed tones for over an hour, voices low to avoid the curious glances from locals. I laid out every scenario. Telling Ryan first, coming out to my parents together, even moving away as a couple and starting fresh. Bethany countered with every fear. The church's reaction, Mom's possible breakdown, Dad's disappointment that could turn into disownment. "You've seen the statistics," she said, voice trembling. "Families like yours don't just accept this overnight. Some never do. I counsel kids who lose everything when they come out. I won't do that to you." By the time we left, nothing was resolved, only the wound reopened wider. Outside on the sidewalk, she stopped me with a hand on my arm. "Promise me you won't say anything yet. Give me time to figure out how to end this without destroying Ryan." Her eyes begged, and against every instinct I nodded. The promise felt like another betrayal, this time of myself. Back home, the atmosphere had shifted. Ryan pulled me aside after dinner, grinning like a kid with a secret. "Bethany and I are thinking about a spring wedding. I want you to be my best woman, Parker. You're the only one who really gets me." The sincerity in his voice made me physically ill. I mumbled something about being honored and escaped to my room, where I stared at old photos hidden in my closet. Pictures of Bethany and me at college events, arms around each other, smiles wide and unafraid. The contrast with today's reality was crushing. That night, Mom knocked softly and sat on the edge of my bed. "You've been quiet since you got here," she said, smoothing my hair like I was still 12. "Is everything okay at work? Or is there someone special you're not telling us about?" The innocent question carried the weight of every unspoken fear. I wanted to scream the truth, to let it all spill out, but the image of her face crumbling stopped me. Instead I lied, saying work was stressful, and she left satisfied. The price of that lie settled heavy on my chest. Another crack in the foundation of who I was supposed to be. Tuesday brought the storm I dreaded. Ryan announced at breakfast that he and Bethany were officially engaged. A simple proposal in the backyard the night before, complete with Mom's old engagement ring. Champagne glasses clinked. Mom cried happy tears. Dad slapped Ryan on the back with pride. Bethany smiled through it all, but when our eyes met across the table, the smile didn't reach her eyes. I raised my glass with everyone else, the bubbles tasting like ash. Later that afternoon, Ryan asked me to help him pick out a suit at the mall. "Man to man, well, sister to brother," he joked. In the fitting room, while he tried on jackets, he opened up. "Bethany's different from anyone I've dated. She gets me, but sometimes I feel like she's holding something back. You're good at reading people, Parker. Do you think she's really in this?" The question hit like a freight train. I wanted to tell him the truth right there. That the woman he loved was in love with me. That our family's perfect plan was built on a lie. Instead I heard myself say, "She seems great, don't overthink it." The guilt followed me home like a shadow. That evening, the four of us sat on the porch watching the sunset. Mom knitting baby booties she'd already started just in case. Conversation turned to wedding plans, guest lists, and whether I'd bring a date. "You've been single too long, honey," Dad said gently. "There's someone out there for you too." Bethany's hand tightened around her iced tea glass until her knuckles whitened. I excused myself, claiming a headache, and retreated to my room. Bethany found me there 20 minutes later, slipping inside and closing the door softly. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered, voice breaking. "Ryan asked me tonight if I loved him. I said yes, but I was looking at you when I said it." Tears streamed down her face as she stepped closer. For the first time in 5 years, she kissed me, soft, desperate, full of every unsaid word. The world narrowed to the feel of her lips, the warmth of her hands on my waist, the way my heart finally felt like it was home. We pulled apart at the sound of footsteps on the stairs. Ryan's voice called from the hallway. "Bethany? You in here?" She wiped her eyes quickly and stepped back. "Coming," she answered, then turned to me with a shattered expression. "This has to stop. One of us has to choose." The door closed behind her, leaving me alone with the taste of her kiss and the knowledge that I couldn't keep my promise any longer. That night I made my decision. I would tell Ryan first, privately, gently, and let him decide how to handle the family. It was the only way to stop the damage from spreading further. But as I lay there planning the conversation, doubt crept in. What if he hated me? What if Mom never spoke to me again? The awakening was painful. I was no longer the scared college girl who chose silence. I was ready to fight for my truth, but the price might be losing the family I still loved despite everything. Wednesday morning I found Ryan alone in the garage, tinkering with his old motorcycle. The smell of oil and coffee grounded me as I approached. "We need to talk," I said, voice steadier than I felt. He wiped his hands on a rag and looked up, concern flickering across his face. I told him everything. The college relationship, the love that never died, Bethany's conflict, my years of hiding. I left nothing out. Even the kiss the night before. Ryan didn't speak for a long minute. Then he sat heavily on the workbench, staring at the concrete floor. "All this time," he said quietly, "you let me fall for her," knowing his voice broke, and the pain in it mirrored my own. "I love her, Parker. But I love you more. You're my sister." He stood, pulling me into a rough hug. "We'll figure this out. Together. But Mom and Dad, this will break them." The confrontation with our parents came that evening after Bethany joined us. She held my hand openly for the first time in years while I spoke. Mom's face went pale. Dad's turned red with confusion and anger. "This is a phase," Dad insisted at first. "You can't throw away everything we taught you." Mom cried, asking how long I'd been this way. The questions, the tears, the accusations of betrayal, they all landed like blows. Bethany defended us calmly, her counselor training shining through, but the damage was done. Ryan stood beside us, supporting in his quiet way. "They're in love," he said simply. "And I won't stand in the way of that." His sacrifice, giving up the woman he'd planned a future with, was the highest price any of us paid that day. In the weeks that followed, the family fractured and slowly began to heal. Mom stopped speaking to me for a month, then started with cautious texts. Dad attended a support group at church. Bethany and I moved back to San Francisco together, building the life we'd always wanted. Ryan found his own path, eventually forgiving us both. Looking back, every choice carried a cost. Trust broken, hearts bruised, illusions shattered. But the awakening was worth it. We chose truth over comfort, love over fear. Was Parker right to shatter her family's expectations for a chance at authentic love? Or would silence have been the kinder path for everyone involved?